So in this video, we are going to see about the functions of skin. So the skin is the outermost barrier between the human body and the environment. The main functions of skin is number one, barrier function, temperature regulation, sensory functions, immunological, vitamin synthesis and secretion, cosmetic functions, and transfer of metabolites and wound repair. The skin occupies a surface area of approximately 2 meters square in an adult human. So coming to barrier functions, number one is permeability barrier. So the skin, it acts as a two-way permeability barrier which determines the inward and outward diffusion of substances like water and electrolytes mainly. So this diffusion is mainly dependent upon the layer stratum. The variation in permeability at different body sites is mainly due to variation in amount of lipid in those sites. So the efficiency of barrier function is mainly dependent on age, environmental changes and the continuity of skin. So these are the corneocytes and they have two envelopes. One is corneocyte envelope, another one is corneocyte lipid envelope. So during development from stratum granulosum to stratum corneum, there is a layer of plasma membrane, and beneath this layer of plasma membrane, this corneocyte envelope is formed. This corneocyte envelope is rich in insoluble proteins. And this plasma membrane layer, it is later converted to a layer of acyl ceramides, which is called the corneocyte lipid envelope. So this corneocyte lipid envelope contains ceramides covalently bound to corneocyte envelope protein. Next, if you see, in stratum granulosum, you have lamellar bodies which are otherwise called as Odland bodies. So the contents of these lamellar bodies are, they contain lipids and then some hydrolytic enzymes and then proteins. These proteins like corneodesmosin. So these lamellar bodies, they are discharged from stratum granulosum and they secrete lipids into the intercellular spaces in the stratum corneum, which also helps in the barrier function. So this barrier, it prevents the entry of polar molecules, whereas regarding non-polar molecules, it only slows down the entry of non-polar molecules. So the entry of polar molecule is totally prevented, whereas the entry of non-polar molecule is only slowed down. So this barrier against chemicals and microorganisms. Against microorganisms, these antimicrobial peptides, they play an important role. So these antimicrobial peptides are of many types, like the resident cells like cathelicidin and beta defensin. This cathelicidin, it is otherwise called as LL37 and it plays an important role in many diseases. And those that are bactericidal like lactoferrin, lysozyme, dermicidin, histone, etc. And infiltrating cells like cathelicidin, alpha defensin, granulysin, perforin, many others. ECP is eosinophilic cationic protein and this EDN is eosinophil derived neurotoxin. And then those that act as proteinase inhibitors like cathelicidin, SLPI is small leukocyte proteinase inhibitor. And then elafin, cystatin, those that act as neuropeptides like alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone substance P, and then bradykinin, vasostatin, chromofungin, neuropeptide Y, and then peptide YY. Those that act as chemokines like psoriasin, CXCL9, 10 and 11. So these antimicrobial peptides, they have a direct antimicrobial activity against bacteria, virus and fungi, and also at the same time they initiate host response which leads to a cytokine storm and then produces inflammation which then leads to angiogenesis and reepithelialization. So this cathelicidin, it is otherwise called as LL37 and this HCAP18 is a precursor of cathelicidin which is itself inactive. And this cathelicidin is suppressed in case of atopic dermatitis and it converts self DNA to a potent stimulus which plays an important auto-inflammatory role in psoriasis, and also it is abnormally processed in conditions like rosacea. So what role does vitamin D3 play in this cathelicidin? So this cathelicidin is found to be a direct target of vitamin D3. How this happens is, This vitamin D3 has to undergo 1 alpha hydroxylation step for its production, and this 1 alpha hydroxylation step is dependent upon CYP27B1. So this CYP27B1 is itself dependent upon inflammatory stimuli from toll-like cell receptors. So whenever there is an inflammation, these toll-like cell receptors, they stimulate this CYP27B1, which leads to an increase in production of vitamin D3, and then this vitamin D3, it induces cathelicidin to play its antimicrobial role. So these antimicrobial peptides, they also form a chemical shield over the surface of skin, and the antimicrobial peptides are secreted by keratinocytes, sebocytes, eccrine glands, mast cells, and also by neutrophils and macrophages. So what is this alarming activity of antimicrobial peptides? So the antimicrobial peptides, as we know, they are active against bacteria, virus and fungi, and at the same time they induce host response, which occurs by direct interaction with cell surface receptors like G protein coupled receptor, toll-like cell receptor, which causes intracellular mobilization, and also they have a synergistic effect with endogenous inflammatory mediators, which leads to an increase in cell migration and increase in chemokine secretion. All these actions, they are together called as alarmin activity of antimicrobial peptides. Then this vitamin D3, in addition to inducing cathelicidin, also helps in keratinocyte proliferation, differentiation and local barrier formation. So the other barriers to microorganisms are the lipids, glycerophospholipids and free fatty acids in the skin, and also the sebum and its products, which are fungistatic. Next, barrier to UV rays. We know that stratum corneum is the first line of defense against UV rays, and the wavelength of UV rays, UVA from 320 to 400, UVB is from 280 to 320, and UVC is from 200 to 280. The effect of UV rays on skin includes that it causes an increase in thickness of stratum corneum and restricts the permeability barrier, increases transepidermal water loss, and causes morphological changes in the stratum corneum lipids, which all finally leads to a decrease in the hydration of the stratum corneum. So mechanical barrier, we know that the dermis contains ground substance, collagen and elastic fibers, which along with the epidermis and subcutaneous fat, it prevents blunt injury to the skin. And also the hair, it helps against abrasion and keeps hazardous material and insects away from the skin. Next, the secretions like sweat and sebum, it helps to wash away pathogens and contains chemicals like lysozymes that kills bacteria. So coming to thermoregulation, this function is mainly carried out by the rich blood supply in dermis and eccrine sweating. So whenever there is an increase in temperature, the preoptic nucleus in the anterior hypothalamus, they get activated, and in turn they cause cutaneous vasodilation and sweat glands activation, which leads to a decrease in body temperature and restores the temperature to normal. Also, whenever there is a decrease in body temperature, again the preoptic nucleus in anterior hypothalamus, they get activated, and this time they cause cutaneous vasoconstriction and involuntary activation of skeletal muscle, which causes increase in shivering, and the body temperature is increased and restored to normal. So how this happens is, when the temperature is increased, there is cutaneous vasodilation, which causes increase in heat transfer to the skin, and there is an increase in sweating, which along with the increase in heat transfer causes increase in evaporative heat loss, and there will be a decrease in heat production by decrease in shivering and thermogenesis. So whenever the temperature is decreased, there will be an increase in heat production by increased shivering, increase in thyroxine hormone secretion and increase in thermogenesis, and also there will be piloerection, that is the upright stand of hair, and there will be cutaneous vasoconstriction, which causes decreased heat transfer to skin and heat preservation. So next is the sensory function. The skin also has mechanoreceptors for touch, vibration and pressure, and thermoreceptors for heat. The skin also contains receptors for pain and itch, and also neuropeptides. Then is the vitamin synthesis and secretion. The sebaceous glands, they secrete a lot amount of vitamin E into the facial skin, which protects the skin from harmful oxidation, and also the skin helps in the synthesis of vitamin D. Next is the transport of metabolites and wound repair. So this cutaneous vasculature, it helps in the transport of metabolites and then temperature regulation as we saw already, and also wound healing by angiogenesis. Regarding cosmetic functions, the color of skin, hair and nails, they have a decorative value, and other functions include functions of subcutaneous fat. It helps in mobility of skin over the underlying structure, and it gives shape to the body, and also it has other functions like it helps in energy storage, mainly in the form of triglycerides, and it gives a cosmetic appearance and helps in thermoregulation. And also the subcutaneous fat, they act as shock absorbers to protect the underlying vital structures. And the functions of nail, it includes the nail helps function in delicate tasks, and then also it helps in protection of distal phalanges. Other functions of nails include it gives aesthetic appearance to the hands and helps in scratching and grooming. And the toenail, they play an important role in pedal biomechanics, and also nails, they help in tactile discrimination. Okay. So regarding immunological functions, skin is the first line of defense against any antigen, and it contributes to innate immunity. So the role of skin in innate immunity is mainly contributed by four factors. One is its role is physical barrier, chemical barrier, complement components and phagocytic cells. So coming to physical barrier, see this epidermis it already contains preformed interleukin 1 alpha. So any damage to the physical barrier also triggers immunological abnormalities in our skin. So what happens is whenever there is a damage to physical barrier, this preformed interleukin 1 alpha it gets activated, and it stimulates the further production of interleukin 1 alpha, interleukin 6, TNF alpha, and granulocyte monocyte colony stimulating factor. So all this will lead to chemotaxis of inflammatory cells into the dermis, and this further leads to the activation of endothelial cells and fibroblast, which leads to scar formation. So this phenomenon is also reported to be the cause for Koebner's phenomenon. And these inflammatory cells, once they reach the site of pathogen invasion, they recognize and kill the pathogen and ingest them by the process of phagocytosis. So this phagocytosis is mainly carried out by polymorphonuclear leukocytes like neutrophils and macrophages. So the chemical barrier is mainly carried out by antimicrobial peptides, which we saw already. And then the last one is complement components. So regarding the function of complement components, the alternative pathway plays a main role. That is, the alternative complement pathway plays a main role here. And also the pathogen after invasion, it gets coated by fragments of C3 and IgG. This process is called as opsonization. This opsonization, it helps the polymorphonuclear leukocytes to recognize the pathogen and kill them by the process of phagocytosis. So after this, the pathogen it gets killed by two processes. One is an oxygen dependent process, another one is oxygen independent process. Oxygen dependent process, it happens through NADPH oxidase, and the oxygen independent process, it happens through enzymes like lysozymes. So these are the cutaneous immune cells that contribute to innate and adaptive immunity. They include resident cells that are present like keratinocytes, sebocytes, fibroblasts, endothelial cells and nerve cells, and then granulocytes like eosinophils, basophils, and then macrophages, mast cells, lymphoid cells, and dendritic cells like inflammatory and plasmacytoid dendritic cells. And those that contribute to adaptive immunity are T cells and then dendritic cells like Langerhans cells and dermal inflammatory and plasmacytoid dendritic cells. So this is the skin under normal condition. So under normal condition, the skin contains the native CD4 and CD8 plus T cells, and the dendritic cell subsets like Langerhans cells and CD1C plus dendritic cells and CD141 plus dendritic cells. And this innate leukocytes like macrophages are only very little in the normal skin. Whereas in conditions like inflammation, if you see, there are lot number of infiltrating cells in the dermis like eosinophils, mast cells, neutrophils, NK cells, macrophages, etc.